Good evening and salutations. I hope everybody is doing amazing today. Happy Monday. Happy relax and read. I hope everybody is ready to read a couple stories, still sticking in the holiday genre. It might not be as long as the previous nights, but I am really, really looking forward to getting to read with y'all. Appreciate you being here. New Zealand fam, I hope you're doing well. Much love, and I appreciate you being here as always. Gonna give a couple of peeps a little bit of time to get in, and in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and work on this as always. And I think I'm gonna solve it from. Let's do blue bottom. So we're gonna solve blue bottom, green top instead of our classic white and yellow. So, green bottom. But tell me, how was everybody's day thus far? Everybody doing well? Hope everybody can hear me okay. Let me know if the mic's coming in clear. Got one person waiting. Appreciate you being here. There we go. Excuse me. All right. All right. Unless that's messing with people, because if that's messing with y'all, then I can turn it off, the subscribers only mode. I know that recently I've been jumping into some channels and it's acting kind of like I'm not subscribed. And it makes me wait for like 30 seconds, but yeah, I hope that's not happening here. If it is, let me know. Hi, Rafa. How's it going, fam? Hope you're doing well. Just got off work not too long ago. Like quite literally 30 minutes ago. Dirk McGurk. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing good. I hope you're doing well as well. Hey, Uncle Brangus. How are you doing, fam? Always great to see you. Always great to see you. How was everybody's day? Did everybody have a good day? Everybody excited for Ghost Miss? I do have that live scheduled as of now. And then I know it's not something that we typically do. But I did get some mail from Mrs. 5150. And if she does pop in, I'll open it real quick, even if it is a Monday. As it was a little Christmas card, and I told her I would wait until we were live to take a look at it. I'm excited too. Dirk, GG's winning in next stream. GG's Dirk McGurk. Let's see. No. Yes. Yeah, congratulations, man. What did you win? Good. Let's rock. Alright, so on today's docket, we are going to read the original Hans Christian Andersen story of the Snow Queen, the very story that did inspire the Disney movie Frozen, which I know was pretty popular, not just with my kid and my son, but my nieces and nephews. He defied all odds. Interesting. Let's see, we're at 5 minutes in. Let's do one more. We'll give a few peeps a few minutes to get in. Not to say I'm waiting for anyone in particular. I know Mama Ghost is probably going to make an appearance. I got a very special package from Mama Ghost today as well. Bison chili was a big hit at work today. Man, I saw that in the chat the other night, and I wanted to ask you about it primarily just to say I wish I could try it. Bison chili sounds amazing. And tell me, was it spicy chili or was it mildly spicy chili? Let's do orange and red this time. And that sounds great. And I hope everything else was good for you too, Brangus. You had a good day. Get red and blue. We'll pop it right there. Pop, pop, pop. Sounds amazing, right? It had a bit of spice and some sweetness. I love sweet chili. Like the sweetness draws you in, and then the spice like brings you back for more. Yeah, that's definitely the way to do it. This one here. This is green. All right. Here, yellow and blue. Okay. That went way too simple. Sweetness comes from grape jam. Yo, that just drew me right on in. That sounds incredible. All I'm doing, y'all, is challenging myself in a different way by solving the cube in a different order than I'm used to. So instead of building up from white on bottom, yellow on top, I put red on bottom and orange on top, just to give myself that little added challenge of color association. And then when we're done with this, we're going to get into some reads. And I'm really looking forward to it. I really miss you guys on Monday. Babsy, do you know what Buffalo said when he dropped his kid off at college? Bye, son. It's good to see you, Babs. Hope everything is going well for you out there. Miss you dearly. Let's do one of these. Let's do one of these. Bye, son. Ooh. Cool. I can dig it. Nice little skip when everything is right where it needs to be. And alright, cool. Appreciate everybody being here. 6 likes on the stream already. 9 people in. Mystic, how's it going? You two had a moment of sussy weirdness again, saying I wasn't subbed when I am. See, that's what I thought. That's been happening to everybody, so it's not just you, Mystic. Every morning when I go into Rocket Scott's on chance, I get a second to, and it's always like, you're not subscribed, but then it clicks over like 10 seconds later. And I think that's just because I turned on the sub-only mode. Yeah, it's a subs-only thing. In fact, that's about enough for me to turn it right off. So really, if they're interested, they will sub. I'm going to turn it off, though, so nobody has to deal with that. There you go. Of course, if they like what they see, they will certainly sub. Wow, that was hard to say. Just getting the story pulled up here. We are going to read a classic Hans Christian Andersen story. We could read quite a few, actually. Ooh, Little Claus and Big Claus. That seems right up there. We'll put that on the read list tonight. I already read The Brave Tin Soldier, which ended very sadly. I was not expecting that. What the Moon Saw. I want to get into that when we're outside of the holiday. The Ugly Duckling, The Snow Queen, and 7 Stories. Okay, so it might take a bit to get through this one. So leave little claws and big claws as a maybe. But anyone can send a message. Excellent. Hope that fixed everything. I really don't want anybody to have to contend with trying to say something and needing to wait. So maybe YouTube will get itself together. I was meaning to ask though, for the last couple of streams, if you have been present, when I redirected at the end, did the redirect work? This is the final one before the Christmas one. Yes, sir. Yes, it is. The next time we stream will be Ghostmas. And I really hope that everybody can make it. I certainly know Christmas is not ideal time to jump in a stream on YouTube, but it's going to be Christmas night. And yeah, it's going to be great. We got a lot of gifts, a lot of fun games planned, a lot of amazing prizes to win. So appreciate you bringing that up. And Rafa, I really appreciate you and your contributions as well with your Rafa tins. Veggie Beast. I hope you're doing well, Veggie. I noticed that with a few, like many us here, sub to you, and while some others, and yet YouTube glitch is saying we're, yeah, exactly. I'm hoping that they get it together. I'm thinking that there's a lot of traffic on YouTube lately, and maybe it's just slowing things down. Link shared, I got you. Office tins are legendary, and I do have 2 tins that will be gifted out. We've got the amazing vintage Japanese cards from Grandpa Ernie, as well as all the beautiful and wonderful gifts that we're giving out for actual Ghostmas throughout the 12 days by Uncle Brangus. Yes, and it is good to see you all here for story time. We are going to read The Snow Queen in 7 stories, it's called. So it's broken down into 7 stories, and we're going to read it. It inspired the movie Frozen. I said it before, I'll say it again. I think it's the coolest little Easter egg in that movie, that Hans Christian Andersen wrote the original story, and there's 4 characters named Hans, Kristoff, Anna, and Sven. And it just made my day that they included his name in the story. All right, yes, I'm finishing the monster I had from work. I didn't feel the need to waste it. But hope you're all ready. Thanks for being here. Smash that like if you have not already. And take a look in the scheduled live for Ghostmas and hit the bells in case you do have time on Christmas night and want to come and hang out. Yeah, I thought that immediately. Like, what do you mean? I don't remember doing that. But yeah, it's kind of like a real got 'em moment. All right. Excuse me. I'm sorry. The Snow Queen. Story the first, which describes a looking glass in broken fragments. You must attend to. All right, gonna be one of those. You must attend to the commencement of the story, for when we get to the end, we shall know more than we do now about the very wicked hobgoblin. He was one of the very worst, for he was a real demon. One day, when he was in a merry mood, he made a looking-glass, which had the power of making everything good or beautiful that was reflected in it almost shrink to nothing, while everything that was worthless and bad looked increased in size and worse than ever. The most lovely landscapes appeared like boiled spinach, and the people became hideous and looked as if they stood on their heads and had no bodies. Their countenances were so distorted that no one could recognize them, and even one freckle on the face appeared to spread over the whole of the nose and mouth. The demon said this was very amusing. When a good or pious thought passed through the mind of anyone, it was misrepresented in the glass. And then how the demon laughed at his cunning invention. All who went to the demon's school, for he kept a school, talked everywhere of the wonders they had seen, and declared that people could now, for the first time, see what the world and mankind were really like. He carried the glass about everywhere, till at last there was not a land nor a people who had not been looked at through this distorted mirror. They wanted even to fly with it up to the heavens to see the angels, but the higher they flew, the more slippery the glass became, and they could scarcely hold it. till at last it slips from their hand, fell to the earth, and was broken into millions of pieces. But now the looking-glass caused more unhappiness than ever, for some of the fragments were not so large as a grain of sand, and they flew about the world into every country. When one of these tiny atoms flew into a person's eye, it stuck there unknown to him, and from that moment he saw everything through a distorted medium, or could see only the worst side of what he looked at. For even the smallest fragment retained the same power which had belonged to the whole mirror. Some few persons even got a fragment of the looking-glass in their hearts, and this was very terrible, for their hearts became cold like a lump of ice. A few of the pieces were so large that they could be used as window panes. It would have been a sad thing to look at our friends through them. Other pieces were made into spectacles. This was dreadful for those who wore them, for they could see nothing, either rightly or justly, at all. This the wicked demon laughed, till his side shook. It tickled him so to see the mischief he had done. There were still a number of these little fragments of glass floating about in the air, and now you will hear what happened with one of them. Hey, Purple Moon, how's it going? What did Ernie win at the end of ALB's stream? That is a good question. You know, I think I took off before the end of ALB's stream. I don't think I saw the finals because I had to edit. But congratulations, Ernie. Hey, Mama Ghost. I hope you're doing well. We're just getting into the second little story about the Snow Queen. It's good to see you, Mama Ghost. Got a small crowd here today, but it's always good to see everybody here ready to listen to a good story. This one's already got my attention. All right. Getting into the second story, a little boy and a little girl. In a large town full of houses and people, there is not room for everybody to have even a little garden. Therefore, they are obliged to be satisfied with a few flowers in flower pots. In one of these large towns lived two poor children who had a garden something larger and better than a few flower pots. They were not brother and sister, but they loved each other almost as much as if they had been. Their parents lived opposite to each other in two garrets, where the roofs of neighboring houses projected out towards each other, and the water pipe ran between them. In each house was a little window, so that anyone could step across the gutter from one window to the other. The parents of these children had each a large wooden box in which they cultivated kitchen herbs for their own use, and a little rose bush in each box, which grew splendidly. Now, after a while, the parents decided to place these two boxes across the water pipe, so that they reached from one window to the other and looked like two banks of flowers. Sweet peas drooped over the boxes, and the rose bushes shot forth long branches, which were trained around the windows and clustered together almost like a triumphal arc of leaves and flowers. The boxes were very high, and the children knew they must not climb upon them without permission. But they were often, however, allowed to step out together and sit upon their little stools under the rose bushes, or play quietly. In winter, all this pleasure came to an end, for the windows were sometimes quite frozen over. But then they would warm copper pennies on the stove and hold the warm pennies against the frozen pane. There would be very soon a little round hole through which they could peep, and the soft bright eyes of little boy and girl would beam through the hole at each window as they looked at each other. Their names were Kay and Gerda. In summer they could be together with one jump from the window, but in winter they had to go up and down the long staircase and out through the snow before they could meet. "See, there are the white bees swarming," said Kay's old grandmother one day when it was snowing. "Have they a queen bee?" asked the little boy, for he knew that the real bees had a queen. "To be sure they have," said the grandmother. "She is flying there where the swarm is thickest. She is the largest of them all, and never remains on earth, but flies up to the dark clouds." Often at midnight she flies through the streets of the town and looks in at the windows. Then the ice freezes on the panes into wonderful shapes that look like flowers and castles. Yes, I've seen them, said both the children, and they knew it must be true. Can the Snow Queen come in here? Asked the little girl. Only let her come, said the boy. It'll set her on the stove, and then she'll melt. Then the grandmother smoothed his hair and told him some more tales. One evening, when little Kay was at home, half undressed, he climbed on a chair by the window and peeped out through the little hole. A few flakes of snow were falling, and one of them, rather larger than the rest, alighted on the edge of one of the flower boxes. The snowflake grew larger and larger, till at last it became the figure of a woman, dressed in garments of white gauze, which looked like millions of starry snowflakes linked together. She was fair and beautiful, but made of ice, shining and glittering ice. Still, she was alive, and her eyes sparkled like bright stars, but there was neither peace nor rest in her glance. She nodded towards the window and waved her hand. The little boy was frightened and sprang from his chair. At the same moment, it seemed as if a large bird flew by the window. On the following day, there was a clear frost, and very soon came in spring. The sun shone, the young green leaves burst forth, the swallows built their nests, windows were open, and the children sat once more in the garden on the roof, high above all the other rooms. How beautiful the roses blossomed this summer. The little girl had learnt a hymn in which roses were spoken of, and then she thought of her own roses, and she sang the hymn to the little boy, and he sang too. Roses bloom and cease to be, but we shall the Christ child see. Then the little ones held each other by the hand, and kissed the rose, and looked at the brightest sunshine, and spoke to it as if the Christ child were there. Those were splendid summer days. How beautiful and fresh it was out among the rose bushes, which seemed as if they would never leave off blooming. One day, Kay and Gerda sat looking at a book full of pictures and animals and birds. And then, just as the clock in the church tower struck 12, Kay said, "Oh, something has struck my heart." And soon after, "There is something in my eye." The little girl put her arm around his neck and looked into his eye, but she could see nothing. "I think it is gone," he said. But it was not gone. It was one of those little magic bits of the looking-glass, that magic mirror of which we had spoken, the ugly glass which made everything great and good appear small and ugly, while all the wicked and bad became more visible, and every little fault could be plainly seen. Poor little Kay had also received a small grain in his heart, which very quickly turned to a lump of ice. He felt no more pain, but the glass was still there. "Why do you cry?" said he at last. "It makes you look ugly. There is nothing the matter with me now. See," he cried suddenly, "that rose is worm-eaten, and its one is quite crooked. After all, they are ugly roses, just like the box on which they stand." And then he kicked the box with his foot and pulled off 2 roses. "Kay, what are you doing?" cried the little girl. And then, when he saw how frightened she was, he tore off another rose and jumped through his own window away from little Gerda. When she afterwards brought out the picture book, he said it was only fit for babies in long clothes. And when grandmother told any stories, he would interrupt her with, "But," or when he could manage it, he would get behind her chair and put on a pair of spectacles and imitate her very cleverly to make people laugh. By and by, he began to mimic the speech and gait of persons in the street. All that was peculiar or disagreeable in a person he would imitate directly, and people said, "That boy will be very clever. He has a remarkable genius." But it was the piece of glass in his eye and the coldness in his heart that made him act like this. He would even tease little Gerda, who loved him with all her heart. His games, too, were quite different. They were not so childish. One winter's day, when it snowed, he brought out a burning glass. Then he held out the tail of his blue coat and let the snowflakes fall upon it. "Look in the glass, Gerda." he said, and she saw how every flake of the snow was magnified and looked like a beautiful flower or a glittering star. Is it not clever? Said Kay. And much more interesting than looking at real flowers. There is not a single fault in it, and the snowflakes are quite perfect till they begin to melt. Soon after, Kay made his appearance in large, thick gloves, and with his sledge at his back, he called up the stairs to Gerda. I've got to leave to go on to the great square where the other boys play and ride. And away he went. In the great square, the boldest among the boys would often tie their sledges to the country people's carts and go with them in a good way. This was capital. But while they were all amusing themselves, and Kay with them, a great sledge came by. It was painted white, and in it sat someone wrapped in a rough fur coat and wearing a white cap. The sledge drove twice around the square, and Kay fastened his own little sledge to it, so that when it went away, he followed with it. It went faster and faster right through the next street, and then the person who drove turned around and nodded pleasantly to Kay, as if they were acquainted with each other. But whenever Kay wished to loosen his little sledge, the driver nodded again. So Kay sat still, and they drove out through the town gate. Then the snow began to fall so heavily that the little boy could not see at hand's breadth before him. But still they drove on. Then he suddenly loosened the cord so that the large sledge might go on without him. But it was of no use. His little carriage held fast, and away they went like the wind. Then he called out loudly, but nobody heard him, while the snow beat upon him and the sledge flew onwards. Every now and then it gave a little jump as if it were going over hedges and ditches. The boy was frightened, and tried to say a prayer, but he could remember nothing but the multiplication table. The snowflakes became larger and larger, till they appeared like great white chickens. All at once they sprang on one side. The great sledge stopped, and the person who had driven it rose up. The fur and cap, which were made entirely of snow, fell off, and he saw a lady, tall and white. It was the Snow Queen. We have driven well, said she. But why do you tremble? Here, creep into my warm fur. Then she seated him beside her on the sledge, and as she wrapped the fur around him, he felt as if he were sinking into a snowdrift. Are you still cold? She asked, as she kissed him on the forehead. The kiss was colder than ice. It went quite through to his heart, which was already almost a lump of ice. He felt as if he were going to die, but only for a moment. He soon seemed quite well again, and did not notice the cold around him. My sledge, don't forget my sledge, was his first thought, and then he looked and saw that it was bound fast to one of the white chickens, which flew behind him with the sledge at its back. The Snow Queen kissed little Kay again, and by the time he had forgotten little Gerda, his grandmother, and all at home. Now you must have no more kisses, she said, or I should kiss you to death. Kay looked at her and saw that she was so beautiful. He could not imagine a more lovely and intelligent face. She did not now seem to be made of ice, as when he had seen her through his window, and she had nodded to him his window, and she had nodded to him. In his eyes she was perfect, and she did not feel at all afraid. He told her he could do mental arithmetic as far as fractions, and that he knew the number of square miles and the number of inhabitants in the country, and she always smiled so that he thought he did not know enough yet. And she looked around the vast expanse as she flew higher and higher with him upon the black cloud, while the storm blew and howled as if it were singing an old song. They flew over the woods and lakes, over seas and land. Below them roared the wild wind. The wolves howled and the snow crackled. Over them flew black screaming crows. And above all shone the moon, clear and bright. And so Kay passed through the long winter's night, and by day he slept at the feet of the Snow Queen. Poor Kay. What's up, Ernie? I hope you're doing well. Kara! It's good to see you, Kara. What's going on, Spencer? It's good to see you, Bri. Lurking tonight, but I'll be around listening. No worries at all. I know you got things to do. Naps are good. No worries at all. PokéCat. How's it going? It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. And everybody is staying healthy. Got 15 people in here. Appreciate you, Ernie. It's really good to see you, brother. Hope you're feeling well and you enjoyed your nap. We only read the first two stories of the Snow Queen, so got to hear about the big old looking mirror glass that makes things seem uglier than they are. And then the little boy and girl who got a piece embedded in their eye and heart. 13 likes, 14 viewers. Math be mathin', y'all are amazing. Really appreciate you being here. As we read the Snow Queen. Third story. The flower garden of a woman who could conjure. But how fared little Gerda during Kay's absence? What had become of him? No one knew, nor could anyone give the slightest information, excepting the boys, who said that he had tied a sledge to another very large one, which had driven through the street and out of the town gate. Nobody knew where it went. Many tears were shed for him, and little Gerda wept bitterly for a long time. She said she knew he must be dead, that he was drowned in the river which flowed close by the school. Oh, indeed, those long winter days were very dreary. But at last spring came with warm sunshine. Kay is dead and gone, said little Gerda. I don't believe it, said the sunshine. He is dead and gone, she said to the sparrows. We don't believe it, they replied. And at last little Gerda began to doubt it herself. I will put on my new red shoes, she said one morning, those that Kay has never seen, and then I will go down to the river and ask for him. It was quite early when she kissed her old grandmother, who was still asleep, then put on her red shoes and went quite alone out of the town gates towards the river. It is true. Is it true that you have taken my little playmat away from me? She said to the river. Playmate. I will give you my red shoes if you will give him back to me. And it seemed as if the waves nodded to her in a strange manner. Then she took off her red shoes, which she liked better than anything else, and threw them both into the river. But they fell near the bank, and the little waves carried them back to the land, as if the river would not take from her what she loved best, because they could not give her back little Kay. But she thought the shoes had not been thrown out far enough. Then she crept into a boat that lay among the reeds, and threw the shoes again from the farther end of the boat and into the water. But it was not fastened, and her movement sent it gliding away from the land. When she saw this, she hastened to reach the end of the boat, but before she could do so, it was more than a yard from the bank, and drifting away faster than ever. Then little Gerda was very much frightened, and began to cry, but no one hurt her except the sparrows, and they could not carry her to land. But they flew along by the shore and sang as if to comfort her, Here we are, here we are. The boat floated with the stream. Little Gerda sat quite still, with only her stockings on her feet. The red shoes floated after her, but she could not reach them because the boat kept so much more in advance. The banks on each side of the river were very pretty. There were beautiful flowers, old trees, sloping fields in which cows and sheep were grazing, but not a man to be seen. Perhaps the river will carry me to little Kay, thought Gerda, and then she became more cheerful, and raised her head and looked at the beautiful green banks. And so the boat sailed on for hours. At length she came to a large cherry orchard, in which stood a small red house with strange blue and red windows. It had also a thatched roof, and outside were two wooden soldiers, and presented arms to her as she sailed past. Gerda called out to them, for she thought they were alive, but of course they did not answer. And as the boat drifted nearer the shore, she saw that they really were, saw what they really were. Then Gerda called still a little louder, and there came a very old woman out of the house, leaning on a crutch. She wore a large hat to shade her from the sun, and on it were painted all sorts of pretty flowers. You poor little child, said the old woman. How did you manage to come all this distance into the wide world on such a rapid rolling stream? And then the old woman walked into the water and seized the boat with her crutch, drew it to land, and lifted Gerda out. and Gerda was glad to feel herself on dry ground, although she was rather afraid of the strange old woman. "Come and tell me who you are," she said, "and how you came here." Then Gerda told her everything, while the old woman shook her head and said, "Hmm." And when she had finished, Gerda asked if she had not seen little Kay, and the old woman told her he had not passed that way, but he very likely would come. So she told Gerda not to be sorrowful, but to taste the cherries and look at the flowers. They were better than any picture book, for each of them could tell a story. Then she took Gerda by the hand and led her into the house, and the old woman closed the door. The windows were very high, and as the panes were red, blue, and yellow, the daylight shone through them in all sorts of singular colors. On the table stood beautiful cherries, and Gerda had permission to eat as many as she would. While she was eating them, the old woman combed out her long flaxen ringlets with a golden comb, and the glossy curls hung down on each side of the little round, pleasant face, which looked fresh and blooming as a rose. "I have long been wishing for a dear little maiden like you," said the old woman, "and now you must stay with me and see how happily we shall live together." And while she went on combing little Gerda's hair, she thought less and less about her adopted brother Kay, for the old woman could conjure. Although she was not a wicked witch, she conjured only a little for her own amusement, and now, because she wanted to keep Gerda, therefore she went into the garden and stretched out her crutch towards all the rose trees, beautiful though they were, and they immediately sunk into the dark earth, so that no one could tell where they had once stood. The old woman was afraid that if little Gerda saw roses, she would think of those at home, and then remember little Kay and run away. Then she took Gerda into the flower garden. How fragrant and beautiful it was! Every flower that could be thought of for every season of the year was here and in full bloom. No picture book could have been more beautiful colors. Gerda jumped for joy and played till the sun went down behind the tall cherry trees. Then she slept in an elegant bed with red silk pillows embroidered with colored violets. And then she dreamed as pleasantly as a queen on her wedding day. The next day, and for many days after, Gerda played with the flowers in the warm sunshine. She knew every flower, and yet, although there were so many of them, it seemed as if one were missing. But which it was she could not tell. One day, however, as she sat looking at the old woman's hat with the painted flowers on it, she saw that the prettiest of them all was a rose. The old woman had forgotten to take it from her hat when she made all the roses sink into the earth. But it was difficult to keep the thoughts together and everything. One little mistake upsets all our arrangements. "What, are there no roses here?" cried Gerda, and she ran out into the garden and examined all the beds, and searched and searched. There was not one to be found. Then she sat down and wept, and her tears fell just on the place where one of the rose trees had sunk down. The warm tears moistened the earth, and the rose tree sprouted up once again, as blooming as when it was sunk, and Gerda embraced it and kissed the roses, and thought of the beautiful roses at home, and with them of little Kay. "Oh, how I have been detained," said the little maiden. "I want to seek for little Kay. Do you know where he is?" She asked the roses, "Do you think he is dead?" The roses answered, "No, he is not dead. We have been in the ground where all the dead lie, but Kay is not there." "Thank you," said little Gerda, and she then went to the other flowers and looked into their little cups and asked, "Do you know where little Kay is?" But each flower, as it stood in the sunshine, dreamed only of its own little fairy tale of history. Not one knew anything of Kay. Gerda heard many stories from the flowers, as she asked them one after another about him. And what said the tiger lily? "Hark, do you hear the drum? Turn, turn. There are only two notes, always. Turn, turn. Listen to the woman's song of mourning. Hear the cry of the priest. In her long red robe stand the Hindu widow by the funeral pile. The flames rise around her as she places herself on the dead body of her husband. But the Hindu woman of the thinking and the living, one in the circle of him and her son who lighted those flames, those shining eyes troubled her heart more painfully than the flames which will soon consume her body to ashes. Can the fire of the heart be extinguished in the flames of the funeral pile? I don't understand that at all, said little Gerda. That is my story, said the tiger lily. What says the convolvulus? Near yonder narrow road stands an old knight's castle. Thick ivy creeps over the old ruined walls, leaf over leaf, even to the balcony, in which stands a beautiful maiden. She bends over the balustrades and looks up the road. No rose on its stem is fresher than she, no apple blossom, wafted by the wind, floats more lightly than she moves. Her rich silk rustles as she bends over and exclaims, "Will he not come?" "Is it Kay you mean?" asked Gerda. "I am only speaking of a story of my dream," replied the flower. "What?" said the little snowdrop. "Between two trees a rope is hanging. There is a piece of board upon it. It is a swing. Two pretty little girls in dresses white as snow, and with long green ribbons fluttering from their hats, are sitting upon it swinging. Their brother, who is taller than they are, stands in the swing. He has his one arm around the rope to steady himself. In one hand he holds a little bowl, and in the other a clay pipe. He is blowing bubbles. As the swing goes on, the bubbles fly upward, reflecting the most beautiful varying colors. The last still hangs from the bowl of the pipe and sways in the wind. On goes the swing, and then the little black dog comes running up. He is almost as light as the bubble, and he raises himself on his hind legs and wants to be taken onto the swing, but it does not stop, and the dog falls. Then he barks and gets angry. The children stoop towards him, and the bubble bursts. A swinging plank, a light sparking foam pitcher. That is my story. It may be all very pretty what you are telling me, said little Gerda, but you speak so mournfully, and you do not mention little Kay at all. And what did the hyacinth say? There were three beautiful sisters, fair and delicate. The dress of one was red, of the second was blue, of the third pure white. Hand in hand they danced in the bright moonlight by the calm lake. But they were human beings, not fairy elves. The sweet fragrance attracted them, and they disappeared in the wood. Here the fragrance became stronger. Three coffins in which lay three beautiful maidens glided from the thickest part of the forest across the lake. The fireflies flew lightly over them, the little floating torches. Do the dancing maidens sleep, or are they dead? The scent of the flower says they are all corpses. The evening bell tolls their knell. You make me quite sorrowful, said little Gerda, and your perfume is strong. You make me think of the dead maidens. Ah, is little Kay really dead then? Then the roses have been in the earth, and they say no. Cling, clang, trilled the hyacinths' bells. We are not tolling for little Kay. We do not know him. We sing our song for the only ones we know. Then Gerda went to the buttercups that were glittering among the bright green leaves. You are little bright suns, said Gerda. Tell me if you know where I can find my playfellow. And the buttercup sparkled gaily and looked again at Gerda. What song could the buttercup sing? It was not about Kay. The bright warm sun shone on a little court on the first warm day of spring. His bright beams rested on the white walls of the neighboring house. And close by bloomed the first yellow flower of the season, glittering like gold in the sun's warm ray. An old woman sat in her armchair at the house door, and her granddaughter, a poor and pretty servant maid, came to see her for a short visit. When she kissed her grandmother, there was gold everywhere, the gold of the heart and the holy kiss. It was a golden morning. There was gold in the beaming sunlight, gold in the leaves of the lowly flower, and on the lips of the maiden. There, that is my story, said the buttercup. My poor old grandmother, sighed Gerda. She is longing to see me and grieving for me, as she did for little Kay. But I shall soon go home now and take little Kay with me. It is no use asking the flowers. They know only their own songs and can give me no information. And then she tucked up her little dress, that she might run faster. But the narcissus caught her by the leg as she was jumping over it, so she stopped and looked at the tall, yellow flower and said, Perhaps you may know something? Then she stooped down quite close to the flower and listened, and what did he say? I can see myself, said the narcissus. Oh, how sweet is my perfume! Up in the little room with the bow window stands the little dancing girl, half undressed. She stands sometimes on one leg and sometimes on both, and looks as if she would tread the whole world under her feet. She is nothing but a delusion. She is pouring water out of a teapot on a piece of stuff which she holds in her hand. It is her bodice. Cleanliness is a good thing, she says. Her white dress hangs on a peg. It has also been washed in a teapot and dried on the roof. She puts it on and ties a saffron-colored handkerchief around her neck, which makes the dress look whiter. See how she stretches out her legs as if she were showing off on a stem. I can see myself. I can see myself. What do I care for all that? Said Gerda. You need not tell me such stuff. And then she ran to the other end of the garden. The door was fastened, but she pressed against the rusty latch, and it gave way. The door sprang open, and little Gerda ran out with bare feet into the wide world. She looked back 3 times, but no one seemed to be following her. At last she could run no longer. So she sat down to rest on the great stone, and when she looked round she saw that the summer was over, and autumn very far advanced. She had known nothing of this in the beautiful garden, where the sun shone and the flowers grew all year round. "Oh, how I have wasted my oh, how I have wasted my time," said little Gerda. "It is autumn. I must not rest any longer." And she rose up to go on, but her little feet were wounded and sore, and everything around her looked so cold and bleak. The long willow leaves were quite yellow, and the dewdrops felt like water. Leaf after leaf dropped from the trees. The sloe thorn alone still bore fruit, but the sloes were sour and set the teeth on edge. Oh, how dark and weary the whole world appeared. Flowers are grim. That's all I gotta say. What's going on, JB? It's good to see you. Alice, I hope you're doing well. One Thug, appreciate you popping in, fam. Christina, it's good to see you. I hope you and Una are doing well. Big Island Angler, how's it going, brother? Karen, Mama Ghost, Ernie, what card did you win at the end of ALB stream? Uncle Brangus wants to know. I too am also curious. 20 likes now, appreciate y'all. Ryan Tran. Nope, that was a trick of the eye. Oh, thank you. Appreciate you. I can do that. I can do that. Thank you, Alice. Hi, everyone. Just finished milking the 4 cows, feeding the chickens, dogs, and horses. Let's go. Running late, but all good. No worries at all. Appreciate you popping in. And we're really just getting into the story. It was an evolution. This is the Snow Queen in 7 stories, it's called, and we're just starting story 4. It's just been a bunch of background information and little Gerda talking to the flowers, who all had very bleak outlooks and stories in life. It's really good to see you, New Zealand fam. Working hard, milking the cows, feeding all the animals. Wow, 17 people came to read with Kev. All right, we're about to start 4th story called The Prince and Princess. Whoa. All right, time to put my feet up. Whoa. Gerda was obliged to rest again, and just opposite the place where she sat, she saw a great crow come hopping across the snow towards her. He stood looking at her for some time, and then he wagged his head and said, "Caw, caw, good day, good day." He pronounced the words as plainly as he could, because he meant to be kind to the little girl. And then he asked her where she was going all alone in the wide world. The word alone Gerda understood very well, and knew how much it expressed. So then she told the crow the whole story of her life and adventures, and asked him if he had seen Kay. The crow nodded his head very gravely and said, "Perhaps I have. It may be." "No? Do you think you have?" cried little Gerda. and she kissed the crow and hugged him almost to death with joy. Gently, gently, said the crow. I believe I know. I think it may be little Kay, but he has a certain forgotten you by this time for the princess. Does he live with a princess? Asked Gerda. Yes, listen, replied the crow. But it is so difficult to speak your language. If you understand the crow's language, then I can explain it better. Do you? No, I haven't learned it, said Gerda, but my grandmother understands it and used to speak it with me. I wish I had learned it. It doesn't matter, answered the crow. I will explain as well as I can, although it will be very badly done. And he told her what he had heard. In this kingdom where we are now, he said, there lives a princess who is so wonderfully clever that she has read all newspapers in the world and forgotten them too, although she is so clever. A short time ago, as she was sitting on her throne, which people say is not such an agreeable seat as is often supposed, she began to sing a song which commences with these words, Why should I not be married? Why not indeed, said she. And so she determined to marry if she could find a husband who knew what to say when he was spoken to, and not one who could only look grand, for that was so tiresome. Then she assembled all her court ladies together at the beat of the drum, and when they heard of her intentions, they were very much pleased. We are so glad to hear it, they said. We were talking about it ourselves the other day. You may believe that every word I tell you is true, said the crow, for I have a tame sweetheart who goes freely about the palace, and she told me all of this. Of course, this sweetheart was a crow, for birds of a feather flock together, and one crow always chooses another crow. Newspapers were published immediately with the border of hearts and the initials of the princess among them. They gave notice that every young man who was handsome was free to visit the castle and speak with the princess. And those who could reply loud enough to be heard when spoken to were to make themselves quite at home at the palace. But the one who spoke best would be chosen as the husband for the princess. Yes, yes, you may believe me, it is all true as I sit here, said the crow. And people came in crowds. There was a great deal of crushing and running about, but no one succeeded either on the first or second day. They could all speak very well while they were outside in the streets, but when they entered the palace gates and saw the guards in silver uniforms and the footmen in their golden livery on the staircase and the great halls lighted up, they became quite confused. And when they stood before the throne on which the princess sat, they could do nothing but repeat the last words she had said, and she had no particular wish to hear her own words over again. It was just as if they had all taken something to make them sleepy while they were at the palace, for they did not recover themselves nor speak till they got back again into the streets. There was quite a long line of them reaching from the town gate to the palace. I went myself to see them, said the crow. They were hungry and thirsty. For the palace they did not get even a glass of water. Some of the wisest had taken a few slices of bread and butter with them, but they did not share it with their neighbors. They thought if they went to the princess looking hungry, they would be a better chance for themselves. But Kay, tell me about little Kay, said Gerda. Was he amongst the crowd? Stop a bit. We were just coming to him. It was on the third day. There came marching cheerfully along to the palace a little personage without horse or carriage, his eyes sparkling like yours. He had beautiful long hair, but his clothes were very poor. That was Kay, said Gerda joyfully. Oh, then I have found him. And she clapped her hands. He had a little knapsack on his back, added the crow. No, it must have been his sledge, said Gerda, for he went away with it. It may have been so, said the crow. I did not look at it very closely. But I know from my tame sweetheart that he passed through the palace gates, saw the guards in their silver uniform and the servants in their liveries of gold on the stairs, but he was not at least embarrassed. It must be very tiresome to stand on the stairs, he said. I prefer to go in. The rooms were blazing with light. Counselors and ambassadors walked about with bare feet, carrying golden vessels. It was enough to make anyone feel serious. His boots creaked loudly as he walked, and yet he was not at all uneasy. It must be Kay, said Gerda. I know he had on new boots, and I heard them creak in grandmother's room. They really did creak, said the crow, yet he went boldly up
to the princess herself, who was sitting on a pearl and as large as a spinning wheel, and all the ladies of the court were present with their maids, and all the cavaliers and their servants. And each of the maids had another maid to wait upon her, and the cavalier servants had their own servants, as well as the page each. They all stood in circles around the princess, and the nearest they stood to the door, the prouder they looked. The servants' pages, who always wore slippers, could hardly be looked at. They held themselves up so proudly by the door. "It must be quite awful," said little Gerda. "But did Kay win the princess?" "If I had not been a crow," said he, "I would have married her myself, although I am engaged." He spoke just well as I do when I speak the crow's language, so I heard from my tame sweetheart. He was quite free and agreeable, and said he had not come to woo the princess but to hear her wisdom, and he was as pleased with her as she was with him. "Oh, certainly that was Kay," said Gerda. "He was so clever. He could work mental arithmetic and fractions. Oh, will you take me to the palace?" "It is very easy to ask that," replied the crow, "but how are we to manage it? However, I will speak about it to my tame sweetheart and ask her advice, for I must tell you it will be very difficult to gain permission for a little girl like you to enter the palace." "Oh, yes, but I shall gain permission easily," said Gerda, "for when Kay hears that I am here, he will come out and fetch me immediately." "Wait for me here by the palings," said the crow, wagging his head, and he flew away. It was late in the evening before the crow returned. "Caw, caw," he said. "She sends you greeting, and here is a little roll which she took from the kitchen for you. There is plenty of bread there, and she thinks you must be hungry. It is not possible for you to enter the palace by the front entrance. The guards in silver uniform and silver servants in gold livery will not allow it. But do not cry, we will manage to get you in. My sweetheart knows a little back staircase that leads to the sleeping apartments, and she knows where to find the key." Then they went to the garden, through the great avenue, where the leaves were falling one after another, and they could see the light in the palace being put out by the same manner. And the crow led little Gerda to the back door, which stood ajar. Oh, how little Gerda's heart beat with anxiety and longing! It was just as if she were going to do something wrong, and yet she only wanted to know where little Kay was. "It must be he," she thought, "with those clear eyes and that long hair." She could fancy she saw him smiling at her, as he used to do at home, when they sat among the roses. He would certainly be glad to see her, and to hear what a long distance she had come for his sake, and to know how sorry they had been at home because he did not come back. Oh, what joy and yet fear she felt! They were now on the stairs. In the small closet at the top a lamp was burning. In the middle of the floor stood a tame crow, turning her head from side to side and gazing at Gerda, who curtsied as her grandmother had taught her to do. "My betrothed has spoken so very highly of you, my little lady," said the tame crow. "Your life history, Vita, as it may be called, is very touching. If you will take the lamp, I will walk before you. We will go straight along the way, then we shall meet no one." "It seems to me as if somebody were behind us," said Gerda, as something rushed by her like a shadow on the wall. And then horses with flying manes and thin legs, hunters, ladies, gentlemen, and horseback glided by her like shadows on the wall. "They are only dreams," said the crow. "They are coming to fetch the thoughts of the great people out hunting." "All the better, for we shall be able to look at them in their beds more safely. I hope that when you rise to honor and favor, you will show a grateful heart." "You may be quite sure of that," said the crow from the forest. They now came to the first hall, the walls of which hung with rose-colored satin, embroidered with artificial flowers. Here the dreams again flitted by them so quickly that Gerda could not distinguish the royal persons. Each hall appeared more splendid than the last. It was enough to bewilder anyone. At length they reached the bedroom. A ceiling was like a great palm tree with glass leaves of the most costly crystal, and over the center of the floor 2 beds, each resembling a lily, hung from a stem of gold. One, in which the princess lay, was white, the other was red, and in this Gerda had to seek for little Kay. She pushed one of the red leaves aside and saw a little brown neck. Oh, that must be Kay! She called his name out quite loud, and held the lamp over him. The dreams rushed back into the room on horseback. He woke. He turned his head around. It was not little Kay. The prince was only like him in the neck. Still, he was young and pretty. Then the princess peeped out of her white lily bed and asked what was the matter. Then little Gerda wept and told her story and all the crows had done to help her. "You poor child," said the prince and princess, and they praised the crows and said they were not angry for what they had done, but that it must not happen again, and this time they should be rewarded. "Would you like to have your freedom?" asked the princess, "or would you prefer to be raised in the position of court crows, with all that is left in the kitchen for yourselves?" Then both the crows bowed and begged to have a fixed appointment, for they thought of their old age and said it would be so comfortable to feel that they had provision for their old days, as they called it. And then the prince got out of his bed and gave it up to Gerda. He could do no more, and she lay down. She folded her little hands and thought, "How good everyone is to me, men and animals too." Then she closed her eyes and fell into a sweet sleep. All the dreams came flying back again to her, and they looked like angels, and one of them drew a little sledge on which sat Kay and nodded to her. But all this was only a dream, and it vanished as soon as she awoke. The following day, she was dressed from head to foot in silk and velvet, and they invited her to stay in the palace for a few days and enjoy herself. But she only begged for a pair of boots, and a little carriage, and a horse to draw it, so that she might go out into the wide world and seek for Kay. And she obtained not only boots, but also a muff, and she was neatly dressed. And when she was ready to go, there, at the door, she found a coach made of pure gold, with a coat of arms, and a prince and princess shining upon it like a star, and the coachman, footmen, and outriders all wearing golden crowns on their heads. The prince and princess themselves helped her into the coach and wished her success. The forest crow, who were now married, accompanied her for the first 3 miles. He sat by Gerda's side, as he could not bear riding backwards. The tame crow stood in the doorway flapping her wings. She could not go with them, because she had been suffering from headache ever since the new appointment, no doubt from eating too much. The coach was well stored with sweet cakes, and under the seat were fruits and gingerbread nuts. "Farewell, farewell!" cried the prince and princess, and little Gerda wept, and the crow wept. And then, after a few miles, the crow also said, "Farewell!" And this was the saddest parting. However, he flew to a tree, and stood flapping his black wings as long as he could see the coach, which glittered in the bright sunshine. SCA, how's it going? Appreciate you, fam. Did I get your mail? Me? I didn't check the mail today. I will check it right after stream, Alice, and I'll let you know. Enjoy your nap. Thanks for listening, SCA. It's going to be a lot. Nana, who has problems with crowds, and why the three of us, Nana's cabin away, and everyone from the night spaces. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, what's going on, Alec? It's good to see you, fam. We're just reading about the Snow Queen. We are about an hour in. We're about to start the 5th story, which means 7 stories won't be as long as I thought. But when I say that these individual segments of speaking are entire pages with no breaks, I think I'm doing all right. So I really appreciate you guys' patience with me, and I hope I'm helping some of you catch some Z's and rest a little bit. As we get into the 5th story, Little Robber Girl. The coach drove on through a thick forest where it lighted up the way like a torch and dazzled the eyes of some robbers who could not bear to let it pass them unmolested. "It is gold! It is gold!" they cried, rushing towards and seizing the horses. Then they struck the little jockeys and the coachman and the footmen dead and pulled little Gert out of the carriage. "She is fat and pretty, and she has been fed with the kernels of nuts," said the old robber woman, who had a long beard and eyebrows that hung over her eyes. "She is as good as a little lamb. How nice she will taste!" And as she said this, she drew forth a shining knife that glittered horribly. "Oh!" screamed the old woman the same moment, for her own daughter, who held her back, had bitten her in the ear. She was a wild and naughty girl, and her mother called her an ugly thing, and had not time to kill Gerda. She shall play with me, said the little robber girl. She shall give me her muff and her pretty dress, and sleep with me in my bed. And then she bit her mother again, and made her spring in the air and jump about. And all the robbers laughed and said, See how she is dancing with your young cub. I will have a ride on the coach, said the little robber girl, and she would have her own way, for she was so self-willed and obstinate. She and Gerda seated themselves in the coach and drove away over the stumps and stone into the depths of the forest. The little robber girl was about the same size as Gerda, but stronger. She had broader shoulders and a darker skin. Her eyes were quite black, and she had a mournful look. She clasped little Gerda round the waist and said, They shall not kill you as long as you don't make us vexed with you. I suppose you are a princess. No, said Gerda, and then she told her history, and how fond she was of little Kay. The robber girl looked earnestly at her, nodded her head slightly, and said, They shan't kill you, even if I do get angry with you, for I'll do it myself. And then she wiped Gerda's eyes and stuck her own hands in the beautiful muff, which was so soft and warm. The coach stopped in the courtyard of the robber's castle, the walls of which were caked from top to bottom. Ravens and crows flew in and out of holes in the crevices, while great bulldogs, either of which looked as if they could swallow a man, were jumping about, but they were not allowed to bark. In the large and smoky hall, a bright fire was burning on the stone floor. There was no chimney, so the smoke went up to the ceiling and found a way out for itself. Soup was boiling in a large cauldron, and hares and rabbits were roasting on a spit. You shall sleep with me and all my little animals tonight, said the robber girl after they had something to eat and drink. So she took Gerda to a corner of the hall, where some straw carpets were laid down. Above them, on laths and perches, were more than 100 pigeons, who all seemed to be asleep, although they moved slightly when the two little girls came near them. These all belong to me, said the robber girl, and she seized the nearest to her, held it by the feet, and shook it till it flapped its wings. Kiss it, she cried, flapping it in Gerda's face. There sit wood pigeons, continued she, pointing to the number of laths in the cages which had been fixed to the walls near one of the openings. Both rascals would fly away directly if they weren't closely locked up. And here's my old sweetheart, Ba. And she dragged out a reindeer by the horn, who wore a bright copper ring around his neck and was tied up. We are obliged to hold him tight, too, or else he would run away from us also. I tickle his neck with everything with my sharp knife, which frightens him very much. And then the robber girl drew a long knife from the chink in the wall and let it glide gently over the reindeer's neck. The poor animal began to kick, and the little robber girl laughed and pulled down Gerda into bed with her. I don't like the little robber girl. I apologize, y'all. This is a very old story. I'm just going to say that now. Listener discretion is advised. Just different times. I always sleep with a knife by me, said the robber girl. No one knows what might happen. But now tell me again all about little Kay and why you went out into the world. Then Gerda repeated her story over again, while the wood pigeons in the cages over her cooed, and the other little pigeons slept. The little robber girl put one arm across Gerda's neck and held the knife in the other, and was soon fast asleep and snoring. But Gerda could not close her eyes at all. She knew not whether she was to live or die. The robbers sat around the fire singing and drinking, and the old woman stumbled about, and it was a terrible sight for a little girl to witness. Then the wood pigeon said, Coo, coo. We have seen little Kay. A white fowl carried his sledge, and he sat in the carriage of the Snow Queen, which drove through the wood while we were lying in our nest. She blew upon us, and all the young ones died excepting us two. Coo, coo. What are you saying up there? Cried Gerda. Where was the Snow Queen going? Do you know anything about it? She was most likely traveling to Lapland, where there's always snow and ice. Ask the reindeer that is fastened up there with a rope. Yes, there is always snow and ice, said the reindeer, and it is a glorious place. You can leap and run about freely on the sparkling ice plains. The Snow Queen has her summer tent there, but her strong castle is at the North Pole. on an island called Spitzbergen. "Oh, Kay, little Kay," sighed Gerda. "Lie still," said the robber girl, "or I shall run my knife into your body." In the morning Gerda told her all that the wood pigeons had said, and the little robber girl looked quite serious, and nodded her head and said, "That is all talk, that is all talk. Do you know where Lapland is?" she asked the reindeer. "Who should know better than I do?" said the animal, while his eyes sparkled. "I was born and brought up there, and used to run about in the snow-covered plains." "Now listen," said the robber girl. "All our men are gone away, only Mother's here, and here she will stay. But at noon she always drinks out of the great bottle, and afterward sleeps for a little while, and then I'll do something for you." Then she jumped out of bed, clasped her mother round the neck, and pulled her by the beard, crying, "My own little Nanny Goat, good morning." Then her mother filliped her nose till it was quite red, yet she did it all for love. When the mother had drunk out of the bottle and was gone to sleep, the little robber maiden went to the reindeer and said, "I should like very much to tickle your neck a few times more with my knife, for it makes you look so funny. But never mind. I'll untie your cord and set you free, so that you may run away to Lapland. But you must make good use of your legs and carry this little maiden to the castle of the Snow Queen, where her playfellow is. You have heard what she told me, for she spoke loud enough, and you were listening." Then the reindeer jumped for joy, and the little robber girl lifted Gerda on his back, and had a forethought to tie her on, and even to give her own little cushion to sit on. "Here are your fur boots for you," she said, "for it could be very cold, but I must keep the muff, it is so pretty. However, you shall not be frozen for the want of it. Here are my mother's large warm mittens, and they'll reach up to your elbows. Let me put 'em on. There, now your hands look just like my mother's." But Gerda wept for joy. "I don't like to see you fret," said the little robber girl. You ought to look quite happy now, and here are 2 loaves and a ham, and that you need not starve." These were fastened on the reindeer, and then the little robber maiden opened the door, coaxed in all the great dogs, and then cut the string with which the reindeer was fastened with her sharp knife, and said, "Now run, but mind you take good care of the little girl." And then Gerda stretched out her hand with a great mitten on it towards the little robber girl, and said, "Farewell." And away flew the reindeer over stumps and stones, through the great forest, over marshes and plains, and as quickly as he could. The wolves howled and the ravens screamed, while up in the sky quivered red lights like flames of fire. "There are my old northern lights," said the reindeer. "See how they flash." And he ran on day and night, still faster and faster. But the loaves and the ham were all eaten up by the time they reached Lapland. Hey, CBC, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. Yes, space is needed. I think I'm gonna have to get you some hot tea. What's up, Chris? I hope you're doing well, brother. It's good to see you. Appreciate you popping in. Have a great night, CBC. Enjoy your movie, fam. Appreciate you popping in for a bit. Still got 16 people here, 24 likes. Let's go. Can we hit 30 in a reading stream? Alright. Hope you're doing well, sir. Feels like it's been a while since we saw each other. Nice to see you this evening. Yeah, likewise, man. We gotta hook up soon. Alright. Let's get into the 6th story. Tell me, are you guys enjoying the story? Apologize for the little robber girl. She was quite grotesque and then quickly turned into one of the nicest people. Always treat your animals with kindness. That's what I have to say. I appreciate that, cat. Oh, 6th story. Excellent. Appreciate that. Always appreciate that. Yeah, this is an interesting story. I'm wondering where the inspiration for the Frozen came from. I guess that's still to come. With the sixth story, the Lapland woman and the Finland woman. They stopped at a little hut. It was very mean looking. The roof sloped nearly down to the ground, and the door was so low that the family had to creep in on their hands and knees when they went in and out. There was no one at home but an old Lapland woman who was cooking fish by the light of a train oil lamp. The reindeer told her all of Greta's story after having first told his own, which seemed to him the most important. But Gerda was so pitched with the cold that she could not speak. "Oh, you poor things," said the Lapland woman. "You must have had a long way to go yet. You have a long way to go yet. You must travel more than 100 miles further to Finland. The Snow Queen lives there now, and she burns Bengal lights every evening. I will write a few words on a dried stock fish, for I have no paper, and you can take it from me to the Finland woman who lives there. She can give you better information than I can." So when Gerda was warmed and had taken something to eat and drink, the woman wrote a few words on a dried fish and told Gerda to take great care of it. Then she tied her again on the reindeer, and he set off at full speed. Flash, flash went the beautiful blue northern lights on the air and the whole night long. And at length they reached Finland, and knocked at the chimney of the Finland woman's hut, for it had no door above the ground. They crept in, but it was so terribly hot inside that the woman wore scarcely any clothes. She was small and very dirty looking. She loosened little Gerda's dress and took off her fur boots and mittens, or Gerda would have been unable to bear the heat. Then she placed a piece of ice on the reindeer's head and read what was written on the dried fish. After she had read it 3 times, she knew it by heart, so she popped the fish into the soup saucepan, and she knew it was good to eat, and she never wasted anything. The reindeer told his own story first, and then little Gerda's, and the Finlander twinkled with her clever eyes, but she said nothing. "You are so clever," said the reindeer. "I know you can tie all the winds of the world with a piece of twine. If a sailor unties one knot, he has a fair wind. When he unties the second, it blows hard. But if the third and fourth are loosened, then comes a storm, which will root up the whole forest. Cannot you give this little maiden something with which will make her as strong as 12 men to overcome the Snow Queen?" "The power of 12 men," said the Finland woman. "That would be of very little use." But she went to the shelf and took down and unrolled a large skin, on which were inscribed wonderful characters, and she read till the perspiration ran down from her forehead. But the reindeer begged so hard for little Gerda, and little Gerda looked at the Finland woman with such beseechingly tearful eyes, that her own eyes began to twinkle again. So she drew the reindeer to the corner and whispered to him while she laid a fresh piece of ice on his head. "Little Kay is really with the Snow Queen, but he finds everything there so much to his taste and his liking that he believes it to be the finest place in the world. But this is because he has a piece of broken glass in his heart and a little piece of glass in his eye. These must be taken out, or he will never be a human being again, and the Snow Queen will retain her power over him." "But can you not give little Gerda something to help her to conquer this power?" "I can give her no greater power than she already has," said the woman. "Don't you see how strong that is? How men and animals are obliged to serve her, and how well she has got through the world, barefoot as she is? She cannot receive any power from me greater than she now has, which consists of her own purity and innocence of heart. If she cannot herself obtain access to the Snow Queen and remove the glass fragments from little Kay, we can do nothing to help her. 2 miles from here, the Snow Queen's garden begins. You can carry the little girl so far, and set her down by the large bush which stands in the snow, covered with red berries. Do not stay gossiping, but come back here as quickly as you can." Then the Finland woman lifted little Gerda upon the reindeer, and he ran away with her as quickly as he could. "Oh, I have forgotten my boots and my mittens," cried little Gerda as soon as she felt the cutting cold, but the reindeer dared not stop. So he ran on till he reached the bush with the red berries. Here he set Gerda down, and he kissed her, and the great bright tears trickled over the animal's cheeks. Then he left her and ran back as fast as he could. There stood poor Gerda, without shoes, without gloves, in the midst of the cold, dreary, ice-bound Finland. She ran forward as quickly as she could, when a whole regiment of snowflakes came round her. They did not, however, fall from the sky, which was quite clear and glittering with the northern lights. The snowflakes ran along the ground, and the nearer they came to her, the larger they appeared. Gerda remembered how large and beautiful they looked through the burning glass. But these were really larger and much more terrible, for they were alive, and were the guards of the Snow Queen, and had the strangest shapes. Some were like great porcupines, others like twisted serpents with their heads stretching out, and some few were like little fat bears with their hair bristled, but all the while dazzling white, and all were living snowflakes. Then little Gerda repeated the Lord's Prayer, and the cold was so great that she could see her own breath come out of her mouth like steam as she uttered the words. The steam appeared to increase as she continued her prayer till it took the shape of little angels, who grew larger at the moment they touched the earth. They all wore helmets on their heads and carried spears and shields. Their number continued to increase more and more, and by the time Gerda had finished her prayer, the whole legion stood around her. They thrust their spears into the terrible snowflakes so that they shivered into 100 pieces, and little Gerda could go forth with her courage and safety. The angels stroked her hands and feet so that she could feel cold less, and she hastened on to the Snow Queen's castle. But now we must see what Kay is doing. In truth, he thought not of little Gerda, and never supposed she could be standing in front of the palace. Hey, Raphilosophy! So many people in chat tonight. Can I give a tin away? Um, uh, maybe? Rafa, can we adopt you too? Leighton is asking. Yeah, that's absolutely your call, man. I certainly don't want to get into the habit of turning Mondays into giveaway days, but we can do that for sure. Mama Ghost and his big brother Nate into our massive family, and trust me when I say that is a great honor. Yeah, we can do that, Rafa. We'll end the night with that. That sounds just fine. Let me do this. I'll just do that. Uh, all right, well, y'all can get in there, and then that will leave us with 1 tin for the Ghostmas stream. But yeah, if y'all want to get in there, you can exclamation point ghost, and then that will be the last thing that we do. I don't really have the setup to run any battles of 48, so we're probably just gonna have Streamlabs pick one winner, and that winner will take home the tin. If that works with you, Rafa. Make sure these tickets are getting out. All right, cool. All right. And there we go. As we get into the 7th story, which should be the last story, of the Palace of the Snow Queen and what happened there at last. Oh man, showing the tin off is going to be tough too. Yeah, I'm not in real any position to be showing off the tin either, so I'm going to do my best, but we'll have to do it front facing. right. And I appreciate you, Rafa, as always, brother. All right. Seventh story of the Palace of the Snow Queen, and what happened there at last? The walls of the palace were formed of drifted snow, and the windows of the doors of the cutting winds. There were more than 100 rooms in it, all as if they had been formed with snow blown together. The largest of them extended for several miles. They were all lighted up by the vivid light of the aurora, and they were so large and empty, so icy cold and glittering. There was no amusements here, not even a little bear's ball. When the storm might have been the music, and the bears could have danced on their hind legs and shown their good manners. There were no pleasant games of snapdragon or touch, or even a gossip over the tea table. For the young lady foxes, empty, vast, and cold, were the halls of the Snow Queen. The flickering flame of the northern lights could be plainly seen, whether they rose high or low in the heavens from every part of the castle. In the midst of this empty, endless hall of snow was a frozen lake, broken on its surface into 1,000 forms. Each piece resembled another, from being in itself perfect as a work of art. And in the center of this lake sat the Snow Queen. When she was at home, she called the lake the Mirror of Reason, and said that it was the best, and indeed the only one in the world. Little Kay was quite blue with cold, indeed, almost black, but he did not feel it, for the Snow Queen had kissed away the icy shiverings, and his heart was already a lump of ice. He dragged some sharp, flat pieces of ice to and fro and placed them together in all kinds of positions, as if he wished to make something out of them, just as we try to form various figures with little tablets of wood and we call a Chinese puzzle. Kay's fingers were very artistic. It was the icy game of reason at which he played, and in his eyes the figures were very remarkable, and of the highest importance. This opinion was owing to the piece of glass still sticking in his eye. He composed many complete figures forming different words, but there was one word he never could manage to form, although he wished it very much. It was the word eternity. The Snow Queen had said to him, "When you can find this out, you shall be your own master, and I will give you the whole world and a new pair of skates." But he could not accomplish it. "Now I must hasten away to warmer countries," said the Snow Queen. "I will go and look into the black craters of the tops of the burning mountains, Etna and Vesuvius, as they are called. I shall make them look white, which will be good for them and for the lemons and the grapes." And away flew the Snow Queen, leaving little Kay quite alone in the great hall, which was so many miles at length. So he sat and looked at his pieces of ice, and was thinking so deeply, and sat so still, that anyone might have supposed he was frozen. Just at this moment it happened that little Gerda came through the great door of the castle. Cutting winds were raging around her, but she offered up a prayer, and the winds sank down as if they were going to sleep. And she went on till she came to a large empty hall, and caught sight of Kay. She knew him directly. She flew to him and threw her arms around his neck and held him fast, while she exclaimed, "Kay, dear little Kay, I have found you at last." But he sat quite still, stiff and cold. Then little Gerda wept hot tears, which fell on his breast and penetrated into his heart, and thawed the lump of ice, and washed away with little piece of glass that had stuck there. Then he looked at her, and she sang, "Roses bloom and cease to be, but we shall the Christ child see." Then Kay burst into tears, and he wept so that the splinter of glass swam out of his eye. Then he recognized Gerda and said joyfully, "Gerda, dear little Gerda, where have you been all this time? And where have I been?" And he looked all around him and said, "How cold it is, and how large and empty it all looks." And he clung to Gerda, and she laughed and wept for joy. It was so pleasing to see them that the pieces of ice even danced about. And when they were tired and went to lie down, they formed themselves into the letters of the word which the Snow Queen had said he must find out before he could be his own master and have the whole world and a new pair of skates. Then Gerda kissed his cheeks, and they became blooming, and she kissed his eyes, and they shone like her own. And she kissed his hands and feet, and they became quite healthy and cheerful. The Snow Queen might come home now when she pleased, for there stood his certainty of freedom in the world she wanted, written in shining letters of ice. Then they took each other by the hand and went forth from the great palace of ice. They spoke of the grandmother and of the roses on the roof. And as they went on, the winds were at rest, and the sun burst forth. When they arrived at the bush with the red berries, there stood the reindeer waiting for them. And he had brought another young reindeer with them, whose udders were full, and the children drank her warm milk, and kissed her on the mouth. Then they carried Kay and Gerda first to Finland Woman, where they warmed themselves thoroughly on the hot room, and she gave them directions about their journey home. Next they went to the Lapland Woman, who had made some new clothes for them, and put their sleighs in order. Both the reindeers ran by their sides and followed them as far as the boundaries of the country, where the first green leaves were budding. And here they took leave of the two reindeer and the Lapland woman, and all said farewell. Then the birds began to twitter, and the forest too was full of green young leaves, and out of it came a beautiful horse, which Gerda remembered, for it was one which she had drawn the golden coach. A fair girl was riding upon it, and a shining red cap on her head, and pistols on her belt. It was the little robber maiden, who had gotten tired of staying at home. She was going first to the north, and if it did not suit her, she meant to try some other part of the world. She knew Gerda directly, and Gerda remembered her. It was a joyful meeting. "You are a fine fellow to go gaddling about in this way," she said to little Kay. "I should like to know whether you deserve that any one should go to the end of the world to find you." But Gerda patted her cheeks and asked after the prince and princess. They are gone to foreign countries," said the robber girl. "And the crow?" said Gerda. "Oh, the crow's dead," she replied. "His tame sweetheart is now a widow, and wears a bit of black worsted around her leg. She mourns very pitifully, but it is all stuff. But now tell me how you managed to get him back." And then Gerda and Kay told her all about it. "Snip, snap, snare! It's all right at last," said the robber girl. Then she took both their hands and promised that if ever she should pass through the town, she would call and pay them a visit. And then she rode away into the wide world. But Gerda and Kay went hand in hand towards home, and as they advanced, spring appeared more lovely with its green verdure and its beautiful flowers. Very soon they recognized the large town where they lived, and the tall steeples of the churches, in which the sweet bells were ringing a merry pearl as they entered it, and found their way to their grandmother's door. They went upstairs to the little room where all looked just as it used to. The old clock was going tick, tick, and the hands pointed to the time of day. But as they passed through the door into the room, they perceived that they were both grown up and became a man and woman. The roses out on the roof were full bloom and peeped in at the window, and where stood little chairs on which they had sat when children, and Kay and Gerda seated themselves, each on their own chair, and held each other by the hand, while the cold empty grandeur of the Snow Queen's palace vanished from their memories like a painful dream. The grandmother sat in God's bright sunshine, and she read aloud from the Bible. "Except ye become as little children, ye shall in no wise enter the kingdom of God." And Kay and Gerda looked into each other's eyes, and all at once understood the words of the old song. "Roses bloom and cease to be, but we shall the Christ child see." And they both sat there, grown up, yet children at heart. And it was summer, warm, beautiful summer. Gotta say, I didn't really care for the ending. I thought they might have had a little spat with the Snow Queen. Apple pie does sound good. Apple crumble pie with ice cream. That sounds amazing. Nice dinner, the family roasted lamb meat, freshly made potatoes, sweet potatoes, kumara salad, and normally fresh veggie salad and homemade apple juice. Let's go. I need to renew a book. What's going on, Ken X? It's good to see you. It is good to see you. Hey, Mrs. 5150. I hope you're doing well tonight. In fact, this is kind of the perfect time for you to pop in because I did receive your mail yesterday, and we can pop that open right quick and just take a look at it. Rafa has convinced me to give away a tin tonight, and really appreciate you, Rafa. So make sure that you get in there. Exclamation point Ghost, Mrs. 5150. And if it's all right, I'll go ahead and pop that open right now. And then we're going to read another little story called Little Claws and Big Claws. About what, I cannot say because I do not know. I didn't realize The Princess and the Pea was such a small story. We might read that one too, just for funsies. But Little Claws and Big Claws. All right. I have it right here. And this was from Mrs. 5150. 30 likes. Appreciate you. Oh. Oh, I so wish I could have saved that. I ripped the little ring out. Oh well. How can I win a second ticket? All right. Aw. Excellent. Got myself a Merry Christmas coloring page. Down with that. Dear Santa letter on the back. I'm going to write my letter to Santa. Aw. Yo, let's go. This is great, Mrs. 5150. Look at that. Got the ghost. Got little Mimikyu back here. This is sweet. Thank you for this. This is definitely going to be placed behind me so that all can see it on my other streams. I really appreciate you, Mrs. 5150. That was super thoughtful. Amazing Gengar, by the way. Better get that letter sent. Looks awesome, right? So cool. Really cool. Hey, Sean Bowden, how's it going? Can Kev color that? Oh, I wouldn't imagine. I wouldn't even think of doing that. I like to leave that as is, monochromatic. I'm gonna color the other one though. Sorry, Uncle Kev. You're welcome to cut. Oh, maybe. Only maybe though, because I'd never want to cover over your work. Doing all right, Sean Bowden. It's good to see you. You do, Uncle Kev. Nana said you're a great babysitter for the younger kids, while big kids are setting up dinner table for. Excellent. I love that, and I appreciate their trust and confidence. I will always take great care of you kids. You're in great company. I will absolutely think about it, Mrs. 5150. But that was super sweet, beautiful. I agree, and I appreciate that. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting story, but we'll read this one. We'll read one more, and then I think we'll call it there so that we can save some energy for the Ghostmas stream. The next time we will be streaming will be Ghostmas night, where we're going to be awarding everything over the 12 days in one stream, playing a bunch of games, new games, old games, giving away all kinds of stuff. Raphilosophy 10, some cards from Mr. Ernie, and the wooden cards. I appreciate you, brother. I truly do. I'm proud of you too. Whatever you need, man, you know if I got it, you got it. Aw. No, no worries at all. You can absolutely pass out if you need to. No, no worries at all, Rafa. I'm sorry to hear that, fam. You know I'm here for you if you ever need anything. So excited. All right. Alice, we got your mail. I think Spencer and I are going to do a Christmas Eve daytime stream. That sounds nice too. I have to work both the day before and after Christmas. So, I mean, it's going to be tough because Ghostmas night, I'm sure, is going to go on for a minute. But all right. Well, thank you for that. That was a nice little mail. And we're going to read another quick story here that interested me just by the name of the story, called Little Claus and Big Claus. Got 29 likes. Yeah, absolutely. Message me if you need anything, Rafa. You know I'm here for you. 29 likes, 22 people in here. Let's go. I don't know, Alice. I have to check after stream. Yeah, absolutely. Hug your animals, y'all. They are certainly, they deserve more credit than we give them, that's for sure. I hope you're doing well as well, Stafford. All right, Little Claus and Big Claus. In a village, there once lived two men who had the same name. They were both called Claus. One of them had 4 horses, but the other had only one. So, to distinguish them, people called the owner with the 4 horses Great Claus, and he who only had one Little Claus. Now we shall hear what happened to them, for this is a true story. Through the whole week, Little Claus was obliged to plow for Great Claus and lend him his one horse. And once a week on a Sunday, Great Claus lent him all 4 of his horses. Then how Little Claus would smack his whip over all 5 horses as they were as good as his own in one that day. They were as good as his own on that one day. The sun shone brightly, and the church bells were ringing merrily as the people passed by, dressed in their best clothes with their prayer books under their arms. They were going to hear the little clergyman preach. They looked at Little Claus plowing with his 5 horses, and he was so proud that he smacked his whip and said, "Giddy up, my 5 horses." "You must not say that," said Big Claus, "for only one of them belongs to you." But Little Claus soon forgot what he ought to say, and when anyone passes, he would call out, "Giddy up, my 5 horses." "Now I must beg you not to say that again," said Big Claus, "for if you do I shall hit your horse on the head, so that he will drop dead on the spot, and there will be the end of him." "I promise you I will not say it any more," said the other. But as soon as people came by nodding to him and wishing him good day, he became so pleased and thought how grand it looked to have all 5 horses plowing in his fields that he cried out again, "Giddy up, all my horses." "I'll giddy up your horses for you," said Big Claus, and seizing a hammer, he struck the one horse of Little Claus on the head, and it fell dead instantly. "Oh, how I have no horse! Now I have no horse at all," said Little Claus, weeping. But after a while he took off the dead horse's. Hang on, let me read ahead for a second. It just gets a little morbid right here, but it seems to be okay, so apologies in advance. And now I have no horse at all, but after a while he took off the dead horse's skin and hung the hide to dry in the wind. Then he put the dry skin into a bag, and placing it over his shoulder, he went out into the next town to sell the horse's skin. He had a very long way to go and had to pass through a dark, gloomy forest. Presently a storm arose, and he lost his way. And before he discovered the right path, evening came on, and it was still a long way into the town, and too far off to return home before night. Near the road stood a large farmhouse. The shutters outside the windows were closed, but the light shone through the crevices at the top. I might get permission to stay here for the night, thought Little Claus, so he went up to the door and knocked. The farmer's wife opened the door, but when she heard what he wanted, she told him to go away, as her husband would not allow her to admit strangers. Then I shall be obliged to lie out here, said Little Claus to himself as the farmer's wife shut the door in his face. Near the farmhouse stood a large haystack, and between it and the house was a small shed with a thatched roof. I can lie up there, said Little Claus, but he saw the roof. It will make a famous bed. As he saw the roof, it will make a famous bed, but I hope the stork will not fly down and bite my legs. For on it stood a living stork, whose nest was in the roof. So Little Claus climbed to the roof of the shed, and while he turned himself to get comfortable, he discovered that the wooden shutters, which were closed, did not reach to the tops of the windows of the farmhouse so that he could see into the room, in which a large table was laid out with wine, roast meat, and splendid fish. The farmer's wife and the sexton were sitting at the table together. She filled his glass and helped him plenteously to fish, which appeared to be his favorite dish. If I can only get some too, he thought, Little Claus. And then she told him to. And then she stretched his neck towards the window, and he spied a large, beautiful pie. Indeed, they had a glorious feast before them. At this moment, he heard someone riding down the road towards the farmhouse. It was the farmer returning home. He was a good man, but still he had a very strange prejudice. He could not bear the sight of a sexton. If one appeared before him, he would put himself in a terrible rage. In consequence of this dislike, the sexton had gone to visit the farmer's wife during her husband's absence from home, and the good woman had placed before him the best she had in the house to eat. When she heard the farmer coming, she was frightened and begged the sexton to hide himself in the empty chest that stood in the room. He did so, for he knew her husband would not endure the sight of a sexton. The woman then quickly put away the wine and hid all the rest of the nice things in the oven, for if her husband had seen them, he would have asked what they had been brought out for. Oh dear, sighed Little Claus from the top of his shed as he saw all the good things disappear. Is anyone up there? Asked the farmer, looking up and discovering Little Claus. Why are you lying up there? Come down and come into the house with me. So Little Claus came down and told the farmer how he had lost his way and begged for the night's lodging. All right, said the farmer, but we must have something to eat first. The woman received them both very kindly, laid the cloth on the large table, and placed before them a dish of porridge. The farmer was very hungry and ate his porridge with a good appetite, but Little Claus could not help thinking of the nice roast meat, fish, and pies, which he knew were in the oven. Under the table at his feet lay a sack containing the horse skin, which he intended to sell in the next town. Now Little Claus did not relish the porridge at all, so he trod with his foot on the sack under the table, and the dry skin squeaked loud. Hush, said Little Claus to his sack. It squeaked quite loud, at the same time treading upon it again till it squeaked louder than before. Hello, what have you got in that sack? Asked the farmer. Oh, it is a conjurer, said Little Claus, and he says we need not eat porridge, for he has conjured the oven full of roast meats, fish, and pie. Wonderful! Cried the farmer, staring up and opening the oven door, and there lay all the nice things hidden by the farmer's wife, but which he supposed had been conjured there by the wizard under the table. The woman dared not say anything, so she placed the things before them, and they both ate of the fish, the meat, and the pastry. Then Little Claus trod again upon the sack, and it squeaked as before. What does he say now? Asked the farmer. He says, replied Little Claus, that there are 3 bottles of wine for us standing in the corner by the oven. So the woman was obliged to bring out the wine also, which she had hidden, and the farmer drank it till he became quite merry. He would have liked such a conjurer as Little Claus carried such he would have liked such a conjurer as Little Claus carried in his sack. Could he conjure up the evil one? Asked the farmer. I should like to see him now, while I'm so merry. Oh, yes, replied Little Claus. My conjurer can do anything I ask him. Can you not? He asked, treading in the same time on the sack till it squeaked. Do you hear? He answers, yes. But he fears that we shall not like to look at him. Oh, I am not afraid. What will he be like? Well, he is very much like a sexton. Ha! Said the farmer. Then he must be ugly. Do you know I cannot endure the sight of a sexton? However, that does not matter. I shall know who he is. I shall know who it is, so I shall not mind. Now then, I have got up my courage, but don't let him come too near me. Stop, I must ask the conjurer, said Little Claus, so he trod upon the bag and stooped his ear down to listen. What does he say? He says that you must go and open that large chest which stands in the corner, and you will see the evil one crouching down inside. But you must hold the lid firmly that he may not slip out. Will you come and help me hold it? Said the farmer, going towards the chest in which his wife had hidden the sexton, who now lay inside, very much frightened. The farmer opened the lid a very little way and peeped in. Oh, cried he, springing backwards, I saw him, and he is exactly like our sexton. How dreadful it is! So, after that, he was obliged to drink again, and they sat and drank till far into the night. You must sell your conjurer to me, said the farmer. Ask as much as you would like. I will pay it. Indeed, I will give you directly a whole bushel of gold. No, indeed, I cannot, said Little Claus. Only think how much profit I could make out of this conjurer. But I should like to have him, said the farmer, still continuing his entices. Well, said Little Claus at length, you have been so good to give me a night's lodging. I will not refuse you. You shall have the conjurer for a bushel of money, but I will have quite a full measure. So you shall, said the farmer. But you must take away the chest as well. I will not have it in the house another hour. There is no knowing if he might not still be in there. So Little Claus gave the farmer the sack containing the dried horse's skin, and received in exchange a bushel of money, full measure. The farmer also gave him a wheelbarrow on which to carry away the chest and the gold. Farewell, said Little Claus, as he went off with his money and the great chest, in which the sexton lay still concealed. On one side of the forest was a broad, deep river. The water flowed so rapidly that very few were able to swim against the stream. A new bridge had lately been built across it, and in the middle of this bridge Little Claus stopped and said, loud enough to be heard by the sexton, Now what shall I do with this stupid chest? It is as heavy as if it were full of stones. I shall be tired if I roll it any further, so I might as well throw it in the river. If it swims after me to my house, well and good, and if not, it will not much matter. So he seized the chest in his hands and lifted it up a little as if he were going to throw it into the river. No, leave it alone, cried the sexton from within the chest. Let me out first. Oh, exclaimed Little Claus, pretending to be frightened. He is in there still, is he? I must throw him into the river that he might be drowned. No, no, oh no, cried the sexton. I will give you a whole bushel full of money if you'll let me go. Why, that is another matter, said Little Claus, opening the chest. The sexton crept out, pushed the empty chest into the water, and went into the house. Then he measured out a whole bushel full of gold for Little Claus, who had already received one from the farmer, so that now he had a barrel full. I've been well paid for my horse, said he to himself when he reached home, entered his own room, and emptied all his money into a heap on the floor. How vexed Great Claus will be when he finds out how rich I've become all through my one horse. But I shall not tell him exactly how it all happened. Then he sent a boy to Great Claus to borrow a bushel measure. What can he want it for? Thought Great Claus, so he smeared the bottom of the measure with tar, and some of whatever was put in it might stick there and remain. And so it happened. For when the measure returned, 3 new silver florins were sticking to it. What does this mean? Said Great Claus, so he ran off directly to Little Claus and asked, Where did you get so much money? Oh, for my horse's skin. I sold it yesterday. It was certainly well paid for then, said Great Claus, and he ran home to his house, seized his Hang on. Apologies. Apologies. Great Claus, he ran home. He seized his hatchet and knocked all four of his horses on the head, flayed off their skins, and took them into town to sell. Skins, skins, who will buy skins? He cried. As he went through the streets, all the shoemakers and tanners came running and asked how much he wanted for them. A bushel of money for each, replied Great Claus. Are you mad? They all cried. Do you think we have money to spend by the bushel? Skins, skins, he cried again. Who will buy skins? But to all who inquired the price, his answer was a bushel of money. He is making a fool of us, said they all. Then the shoemakers took their straps and the tanners their leather aprons and began to beat Great Claus. Skins, skins, they all cried, mocking him. Yes, we'll mark your skin for you till it's black and blue. Out of the town with him, said they. The Great Claus was obliged to run as fast as he could. He had never before been so thoroughly beaten. Ah, said he, as he came to his little house. Little Claus shall pay me for this. I will beat him to death. Meanwhile, the old grandmother of Little Claus had passed. She had been cross, unkind, and really spiteful to him. But he was very sorry, and took the dead woman to lay her in the warm bed to see if he could bring her to life again. There he determined that she would lie her whole night, while he seated herself in the chair in the corner of the room, as he had done so often before during the night. As he sat there, the door opened, and in came Great Claus with a hatchet. He knew well where Little Claus' bed stood, so he went right up to it and struck the old grandmother on the head, thinking it must be Little Claus. There, he cried, now you cannot make a fool of me again. And then he went home. That is a very wicked man, thought Little Claus. He meant to kill me. It is a good thing for my old grandmother that she was already dead, or he would have taken her life. Then he dressed his old grandmother in her best clothes, borrowed a horse from his neighbor, and harnessed it to the cart. Then he placed the old woman on the back seat, so that she might not fall over out as he drove, and rode away through the woods. By sunrise they reached a large inn where Little Claus stopped and went to get something to eat. The landlord was a rich man, and a good man too, but as passionate as if he had been made of pepper and snuff. I'm not sure where the story is going, y'all. I think it was very misleading with these two clauses. This isn't a Christmas story at all. This is an awful story. Unless I ate soup he made me good. Gotta eat. Your Itonian and changes of cadence. I appreciate that. Double A, yeah. So I am currently reading a little story called Big Claus and Little Claus, and I thought it was going to be about Santa Claus, and it turns out no, these are two very wicked men. I'm just reading forward a little bit here. Yeah, I don't know if I want to finish this story. It seems that it's just a whole bunch more of all of that, so. Jesse! It's good to see you, Jesse. Yeah, this is not what I thought it would be, y'all. Yeah, it made me laugh. It made you guys laugh. My grandkids are happy with it, but you do, Uncle Kev. Okay. They're really the only audience of which I would consider it being a little bit much, but let's see where we're at. We're at about 2 hours here. This reminds me of something, I forget. The way they worded stuff. It's just an old story. Yeah, finish it. Okay, I'll finish it. Your haircut makes me. All right. Good morning, said he, Little Claus. Said he to Little Claus. You are come bedtime. You are come betimes today. Yes, said Little Claus. I am going to the town with my old grandmother. She is sitting in the back of the wagon, but I cannot bring her into the room. Will you take her a glass of mead? But you must speak very loudly, for she cannot hear you well. Yes, certainly I will, replied the landlord, and pouring out a glass of mead, he carried it out to the dead grandmother, who sat upright in the cart. Here is a glass of mead from your grandson, said the landlord. The dead woman did not answer a word, but sat quite still. Do you not hear? Cried the landlord as loud as he could. Here is a glass of mead from your grandson. Again and again he bawled it out, but as she did not stir, he flew into a passion and threw the glass of mead in her face, and it struck her on the nose, and she fell backwards out of the cart, for she was only seated there, not tied in. Hello, cried Little Claus, rushing out of the door and seizing hold of the landlord by the throat. You have killed my grandmother, see? Here is a great hole in her forehead. Oh, how unfortunate, said the landlord, wringing his hands. This all comes of my fiery temper. Dear Little Claus, I will give you a bushel of money. I will bury your grandmother as if she were my own. Only keep silent, or else they will cut off my head, and that would be disagreeable. So it happened that Little Claus received another bushel of money, and the landlord buried his old grandmother as if she had been his own. When Little Claus reached home again, he immediately sent a boy to Great Claus, requesting him to lend him a bushel measure. How is this? Thought Great Claus. Did I not kill him? I must go and see for myself. So he went to Little Claus and took the bushel measure with him. How did you get all this money? Asked Great Claus, staring with wide eyes at his neighbor's treasures. You killed my grandmother instead of me, said Little Claus, so I have sold her for a bushel of money. That is a good price at all events, said Great Claus. So he went home, took a hatchet, and killed his own grandmother with one blow. Then he placed her on a cart and drove her into town to the apothecary and asked him if he would buy a dead body. Whose is it, and where did you get it? Asked the apothecary. It is my grandmother, he replied. I killed her with a blow, that I might get a bushel of money for her. Heaven preserve us, cried the apothecary. You are out of your mind. Don't say such things, or you will lose your head. And then he talked to him seriously about the wicked deed he had done, and told him that such a wicked man should surely be punished. Great Claus got so frightened that he rushed out of the surgery, jumped into the cart, whipped up his horse, and drove home quickly. The apothecary and all the people thought him mad and let him drive where he'd like. You shall pay for this, said Great Claus as soon as he got to the high road. You shall pay, Little Claus. So as soon as he reached home, he took the largest sack he could find and went over to Little Claus. You have played me another trick, he said. First I killed all my horses, then my old grandmother, and it's your fault. But you shall not make a fool of me any more. So he laid hold of Little Claus round the body and pushed him into the sack, which he took on his shoulders, saying, Now I'm going to drown you in the river. He had a long way to go before he reached the river, and Little Claus was not a very light weight to carry. The road led by the church, and as they passed he could hear the organ playing and the people singing beautifully. Great Claus put down the sack, and close to the church door he thought he might as well go in and hear a psalm before he went any further. Little Claus could not possibly get out of the sack, and all the people were in church, so in he went. Oh dear, sighed Little Claus in the sack as he turned and twisted about, but he found he could not loosen the string with which it was tied. Presently the old cattle driver, with snowy hair, passed by, carrying a large staff with his hand, with which he drove a large herd of cows and oxen before him. They stumbled against the sack in which lay Little Claus. It turned over and over. Oh dear, sighed Little Claus. I am very young, yet I am soon going to heaven. And I, poor fellow, said the drover, I, who am so old already, cannot get there. Open the sack, cried Little Claus. Creep into it instead of me, and you will be there soon. With all my heart, replied the drover, opening the sack, from which sprang Little Claus as quickly as possible. Will you take care of my cattle? said the old man as he crept into the bag. Yes, said Little Claus, and he tied up the sack and then walked off with all the cow and oxen. When Great Claus came out of the church, he took up the sack and placed it on his shoulder. It appeared to have become lighter, for the old drover was not half so as heavy as Little Claus. How light he seems now, he said. Ah, it is because I have been to church. So he walked on to the river, which was deep and broad. He threw the sack containing the old drover into the water, believing it to be Little Claus. There you may lie, he exclaimed. You will play me no more tricks now. Then he turned to go home. But when he came to a place where two roads crossed, there was Little Claus driving the cattle. How is this? Said Great Claus. Did I not drown you just now? Yes, said Little Claus. You threw me into the river about a half hour ago. But whatever did you get all these fine beasts? Said Great Claus. These beasts are sea cattle, replied Little Claus. I'll tell you the whole story, and thank you for drowning me. I am above you now. I am really very rich. I was frightened, to be sure, while I lay there tied up in the sack, but the wind whistled in my ears when you threw me into the river from the bridge, and I sank to the bottom immediately. But I did not hurt myself, for I fell upon beautifully soft grass which grows down there, and in a moment the sack opened, and the sweetest little maiden came towards me. She had snow-white robes and a wreath of green leaves on her wet hair. She took me by the hand and said, So you are come, Little Claus, and here are some cattle for you to begin with. About a mile further on the road there is another herd for you. Then I saw that the river formed a great highway for the people who lived in the sea. They were walking and driving here and there from the sea to the land and the spot where the river terminates. The bed of the river was covered with the loveliest flowers and sweet fresh grass. The fish swam past me as rapidly as the birds do here in the air. How handsome all the people were, and what fine cattle were grazing on the hills and in the valleys. But why did you come up again? Said Great Claus. If it was all so beautiful down there, I should have not done so. Well, said Little Claus, it was a good policy on my part. You heard me say just now that I was told by the sea maiden to go a mile further on the road, and I should find a whole herd of cattle. By the road she meant the river, for she could not travel any other way. But I knew the winding of the river, and how it bends, sometimes to the right, sometimes to the left, and it seemed a long way. So I chose a shorter one, and by coming up to the lands and driving across the fields back again to the river, I shall save myself half a mile, and get all my cattle more quickly. What a lucky fellow you are! Exclaimed Great Claus. Do you think I should get any sea cattle if I went down to the bottom of the river? Yes, I think so, said Little Claus, but I cannot carry you there in a sack. You are too heavy. However, if you will go there first and then creep into a sack, I'll throw you in with great pleasure. Thank you, said Great Claus, but remember, if I do not get any sea cattle down there, I shall come up again and give you a good thrashing. No, now, don't be so fierce about it, said Little Claus as they walked on towards the river. When they approached it, the cattle, who were very thirsty, saw the stream and ran down to drink. See what a hurry they're in, said Little Claus. They are longing to get down again. Come, help me, make haste, said Great Claus, or you'll get beaten. So he crept into a large sack, which had been laying across the back of one of the oxen. Put in a stone, said Great Claus, or I may not sink. Oh, there's not much fear of that, he replied. Still, he placed a large stone into the bag, and then tied it tightly, and gave it a push. Plump went the Great Claus, and immediately sank to the bottom of the river. I'm afraid he will not find any cattle, said Little Claus, and then he drove his own beasts homeward. So that's the story y'all wanted me to finish. Oh yeah, that was a nuts story. How unfortunate. Yeah, that was the story, and why you should never believe all of what you hear immediately, and never assume anything. That was a lot of fun. That was like if Edgar Allan Poe smiled, that's what he would have written. And to wrap it up, and then we'll run the Rafa tin real quick. We'll open that real fast so that we can give it away. Let me try and do something real fast here. Loved it in our life. I'm really glad for that. I'm glad for that. Really appreciate y'all being here. Just taking care of something real fast. We're going to read one more real quick story, and it's called The Princess and the Pea. All right, should be all right. Appreciate you guys. Story time. Oh, Uncle Kev or Ghost Kev. Love your stories. I appreciate you guys. I really do. Being here, got what, 32 likes, 22 people on a Monday. This one are lurking while playing Zelda. Let's go. And I hope Dexter's doing well. Yes, that is a Yoda Lego, and this is Grogu. And I got a bonsai. I don't think I've ever read The Princess and the Pea, though I've heard the story 1,000 times. Once upon a time, there was a prince who wanted to marry a princess. But she would have to be a real princess. He traveled all over the world to find one, but nowhere could he get what he wanted. There were princesses enough, but it was difficult to find out whether they were real ones. There was always something about them that was not as it should be. So he came home again and was sad, for he would have liked very much to have a real princess. One evening, a terrible storm came on. There was a thunder and lightning, and the rain poured down in torrents. Suddenly, a knocking was heard at the city gate, and the old king went to open it. It was a princess standing out there in front of the gate, but good gracious, what a sight the rain and the wind had made her look! The water ran down from her hair and clothes, it ran down into the toes of her shoes and out again at the heels. And yet she said that she was a real princess. Well, we'll soon find that out, thought the old queen, but she said nothing, went into the bedroom, took all the bedding off the bedstead, and laid a pea on the bottom. Then she took 20 mattresses and laid them on the pea, and then 20 eiderdown beds on top of the mattresses. On this the princess had to lie all night. In the morning she was asked how she had slept. "Oh, very badly," she said. "I have scarcely closed my eyes all night. Heaven only knows what was in the bed. But I was lying on something hard, so that I am black and blue all over my body. It's horrible." Now they knew she was a real princess because she had felt a pea right through the 20 mattresses and the 20 eiderdown beds. Nobody but a real princess could be as sensitive as that. So the prince took her for his wife, and now he knew that he had a real princess, and the pea was put in the museum, where it may still be seen if no one has stolen it. There, that is a true story. That's the whole story in its entirety, right there. The Princess and the Pea. Lori, how's it going, boo? I do not have a Vader or Jar Jar Binks yet. I physically ran out of room, Sean Bowden, to put Lego. In fact, truth be told, I've got 2 sets down here right now so that I could put Pikachu up here for this time being. Appreciate that. If you haven't already, exclamation point ghost. Rafa convinced me to give away a tin tonight, so we're going to give away a tin right now. And Rafa, I hope you're doing well, brother. Yeah, it was a great little story. one tiny thing in my sheets, and I go nuts. Oh, Lori's claiming she's a real princess. I'm just kidding. We all know you're a real princess. But make sure you get in there. Exclamation point ghost. Because we're going to run that. I don't have all my cards or anything over here to do any of the Battle of 48. But there you go. There you go, everybody. Got another chance. Get in there. Get in there. 24 people here. And we're going to have to do this in the front way. And I'm going to have to show you this way. I hope that's all right. But I am going to go and grab it right quick. Just bear with me while I do that. And we're going to close it and award it. But we're going to let Streamlabs pick. I wish we could battle for it. All right, there we go. And Rafa, appreciate you again, brother, for the contributions. Oh, of the tins and Ghost Miss. Boy. Joined at story 4, so I was a bit late. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you being here, brother. This is what we're going to go ahead and give away. And this is a tin that was put together by Raphilosophy, filled with all kinds of cool goodies, as well as some art cards. And then, of course, the winner of this will also get a customized art card from me. You just have to call it out in the chat which energy and what you would like on it. It has a bow. It does have a bow. Of course, the bow will stay here because it's on the shrink wrap, but I think I can, try and stick it on there. So cute, right? And it looks like a little deli bird if I know my art. Has his toes and fingers crossed. I do feel bad just throwing it out to one. So if you guys are okay with the honor method, I can grab the Battle of 48 and I can pick 2 people and I can count them out right here if you would like. But if y'all are okay with that, or we can pick one winner, you guys decide. Or Rafa, if you're in the chat, you can decide. Man. It's like the worst time for that to happen. Appreciate your patience, y'all. I figured that y'all would probably appreciate me getting some sustenance, so. I forgot I still have a whole video to edit tonight for day 10 of Ghostness, y'all. I can't believe we are so close to the end. And it has definitely been quite a journey, and I really appreciate y'all taking that journey with me. Yep, I will just do the. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you. How can I go to all days? I think I missed a couple. If you're in my Discord, you can definitely. I have a channel in there, Ernie, called Ghostmas Days. That is Leighton in chat. Editing sucks. I'm so burned out. Yeah. Where's the song? Oh, I haven't unveiled it yet. I just wanted an opinion from a few of you, but that's gonna be the song that people hear when the stream starts on Ghostmas. As Leighton in the chat. Just pull a name, no battle. You got it. Just pull a name, no battle, says Leighton. It is a Christmas movie. We're talking about Die Hard. We say battle it out, arm wrestle for it, no, go for it, dealer's choice, Kev, your channel. This might be the multiple art card set. I'll pull them out, Rafa, for sure. It is a Christmas movie. I'll throw a grenade. I've never seen Die Hard, but it takes place during Christmas then. Sounds like a Christmas movie. All right, y'all. Just for time and ease, let's do this, y'all. I'm going to close it up. We're going to pick one winner. That one winner will win. Smash the like. If you have not yet, try one more time, Ken X. There you go. Even Bruce Willis said it's not a Christmas movie. It's not so much as a have to as it's going to be really wise if I do earn. So I really appreciate you guys and your patience there. And I can probably do this. Okay. 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 That works for me. Sweet. I hope I went her off a 10. Bruce Willis isn't always right. It is almost 10 p.m. I still have to eat and edit and sing. I have to sing. So I really appreciate your patience, y'all. We do have more of these to begin or to give away on Christmas. I believe we have one more of these, a bunch of other cards as well as some mystery packs. We got One Thug stacking stuff for you as well. So best of luck. Almost midnight. Always be a Christmas. I think that I associate Christmas movies with movies I watch around Christmas. So, but I will say I tried to give A Christmas Carol a watch, the animated one with Jim Carrey. I didn't care for it. I'm just gonna say that loud and clear. I didn't care for it. All right. Yes. Never seen that. Go watch Die Hard. All right, close it up. Got 18 people in the chat. Been open for about an hour. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. I'm gonna close it up. I almost said we're gonna give it a 1 shuffle and a 2 shuffle. But that's just muscle memory. Hang on, let me see if you're in there, One Thug. All right, get in there, One Thug. I didn't see you in there. I didn't say I didn't like Jim Carrey. I said I didn't care for that version of A Christmas Carol. Everybody check, make sure you're in there. Go ahead, One Thug, get in there. And again, I appreciate you, brother, for your contributions to the Ghostmas and beyond. That's going to be far into past Christmas. So, Purple Moon jumping in there. We in there. I will double check. I'm making sure everybody's in there. I'll call them out as I see them. Got Laura Lovejoy. Got Leighton. Got Chris. Alice. Ken X. Purple Moon. Ghost Spencer. Pokey Cat. Christina. Sean. Marble. Mrs. 5150. Grandpa Ernie. Lori. JB's, Dagger, PokéGirl Jesse, Stafford. And I'm waiting for One Thug to get in there. Got to do it one more time, One Thug. Yes, I wouldn't say an ill will against Jim Carrey. He certainly is. I will say that I appreciate what he did for our childhood, because without things like Ace Ventura, Pet Detective 1 and 2, I don't think I would have ever had to. Well, you got to enter it one more time, One Thug. You didn't get in there, so there you go. Appreciate you. There you go. Thug should know to double tap just in case. There it is. All right. Appreciate you, One Thug. Got 19 peeps in there. Stafford hopped in there. Excellent. Appreciate you guys. We are closing it up for reals this time. Let's get some quick refresh. You will not only get the Raphilosophy art cards and contents of the tin, but you're going to have to shout out an energy and something you would like me to draw on it. I will be very transparent that these are going to take a while to go out. It's probably going to be sometime January, but I really appreciate your guys' patience with the mail and the craziness that is Christmas. Best of luck, y'all. Come on down. JB's Pokestop. Can we pay for mail delivery? Well, I certainly do want to keep the giveaways free as I possibly can, so they will certainly come and not necessary. However, I will let you know that all donations are going to go toward shipping. If you're going to give it away, why enter? Because then it's a choice. But I do appreciate you all. JBs, are you still here? Oh, if you want it sooner, I got you. It's less about it's less about money right now and more about transport. So really, really wanted that. I'm just waiting to see if JB's still here. I can't draw fast. Yeah, that's true. But I will tell you that after Ghostmas, y'all, I am probably going to take a week or two away from the streaming to get everything under control and get everything out. Yeah, I hope everybody's live. I know sometimes these streams, when I'm reading, it's just easier to let it go. So make sure that you are live, y'all, and we'll go ahead and give it till. I think we lost a ghost. No, it's JB. JB, did you fall asleep? And Lori? No, we're gonna pick again. Is what Rafa was saying. Got it. If he isn't here, hang on. I always forget to flip. Oh, there it is. There he is. Hey, JB, I see you. Okay, man, that was taking the dog out. Okay. I was making sure I was flipping to live chat to make sure that I didn't hear it. run a ducky race, and I absolutely would. We are going to be running duck races on Ghostmas. I'm just really not set up here because then you'll have to see my entire living area moving the camera, and I don't know if I'm comfortable with y'all seeing where I sleep quite yet. No worries, just made it. I was literally refreshing to hover over the button, and I was like, let me flip the live chat. So congratulations, JB, you won the Rafa 10. Really appreciate you, fam, and your contributions to the world. Yes, I promise, Rafa. I will do more duck races coming up because we do have a very special giveaway from Mr. One Thug Stacking as well. And he requested that be done in the form of a duck race. And places first, second, third, fourth, and last will get the prizes. All right. So this is actually some story cards for you, JB. Rafa went the extra most bestest here. Apologize if it's mirrored. But it says, this looks kind of chill. Look at him with his little hat and bag. Beautifully done, Rafa. That says, I bet I can slide into slide out. Bet I can slide in and slide out. If you don't, Chad, have a happy and safe New Year as well. Still hanging in the end, but wanted to send well wishes. I appreciate you, Chris, and to you as well, my brother. These are so cute, right? Then this says, let's deliver the goods. So you got 3 different art cards, JB, from Mr. Raphilosophy to tell a story of Delibird. Saving Christmas is what I call it. And then you can also pick a energy card and an art card from me personally, brother, and I'll draw you one. So let me know which energy and what you want on it. And we're going to pop this tin open here. And of course, I hope I have earned the trust of everybody thus far. We are going to start with little Lapras sticker. Yeah, absolutely. Getting into some ice, baby. Got the coughing. Don't forget to leave berries out for Delibird Christmas Eve. That's so cute. Oh my god, the derp sticker. That was a good derp sticker. But here's one that's going to get everybody in a tizzy. Got a little Sylveon sticker. Which I just recently found out the ribbons that are attached to it is actually part of its skin. So, a little weird. All right, y'all. I know it's Monday, it's reading, it's lax, but let's get some hype for the EX. We got Gyarados EX from Scarlet and Violet base. Got Ceruledge EX from Surging Sparks. Uncle Rafa, if you are male, or Auntie Rafa if female. We are all debating gender for Rafa. I don't know if I should just let the debate continue, but Rafa is male. That is Uncle Rafa. Got the Clodsire, Japanese. The Flydon, Japanese. And then, of course, JB, if you're dropping in on Christmas night, I'll pull this out again and show you on the other cam. All right. Got your Oz ready, everybody? Let's go. Got Pikachu. Looking like he's in a little kimono. I'm Uncle Laura. He's Auntie Rafa. Don't confuse them. Got the little possessed Game Boy sticker. Ooh. This is sick. This is, of course, in a sleeve, but look at that. Got the Articuno, blast in the Arctic. We've got the Nidoran, female, Ice Baby. W10, as always, Rafa. All right, JB. We'll start here, as you're going to get a piece of history from Mr. Raphilosophy. Whether you have one or not, this is a Repro cartridge. It is 100% tested, and it is working. Things, I really need to sleep. Good night, y'all. Yes, Merry Christmas indeed, and I hope to see you on Ghostmas night, Jess. If not, I hope you have a wonderful and safe holidays, you and Maddie G. And those kids, too. The kids you care for, and they're super sweet. Picked up my off-brand Game Boy sticker from my LCS and picking up a power cord for my PS. Wow, that statement is so 2000. But here you are, JB. It's a Repro cartridge, and you are getting the original Sapphire cartridge, Pokemon Sapphire. The others are like the idea of anti-ruffle. So there you are, Mr. JB. Whether you got that Game Boy Advance or not, I think this is an incredible piece of history to hold on to. But this is a legit Game Boy Advance cartridge of the original Pokemon Sapphire. But wait, there's more. And to finish it off, it would not be a Raphilosophy. I don't think you're ready for this. I'm looking at it, and I'm not ready for this. I wouldn't recommend putting this on your keys, JB, but if you ever do, you will forever be guarded by Michihiro Rita's art rare Blastoise from 151 in the form of a keychain. Congratulations, JB, for real. I don't think you'd mind the Blastoise, but definitely going to a very deserving individual, always caring, incredibly selfless. Whatever you need, brother. If there's ever anything you need and we got it, you got it. But we really appreciate you, JB. So, drop in on Ghostmas, y'all. Oh, give me 1 second. I think my food is here, which is odd, because that was fast. Just 1 second. Ah, thank you. You too. All right, that was faster than I thought it was going to be here. But I got my dinner. Perfect timing. I get this all packed up. But JB, absolute pleasure, man. Really happy that you were here tonight and able to hang out. And thank you, Rafa, for the 10 suggestion. Caring the love I needed today, brother. Thank you all so absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted you to win it if it's any consolation. That's it. I'm marrying Rafa. Sorry for the. Well, when did this happen? No, W10 for real, Rafa. Welcome to our family, Uncle Rafa. I love that. We will be there. Excellent. I'm putting the Rafa cards in here, and then JB, you still get a card from me too. So if you want to shout out in the chat any energy that you want, if you just want me to go at it with anything, I can do that with you. There's a Pokemon in mind you want me to try and draw. I've been getting pretty good at it. But we're going to go ahead and put all this back right quick. so I can get it packaged up. And then I gotta mark JB on it so that we can get that out to you. Just like that. Perfect. Love being here. Enjoy the story cards, JB, and everything else. Absolutely. And we love you being here, Rafa. We really do. I'm glad we were able to bring you some of that positivity today, JB. And for everybody listening, no matter what you're going through, never ever should it enter your mind that you are alone. We are always going to be here going through it with you 100%, even if it's just an ear, a listen, a hug, a handshake, a high five. I'm here for it. Absolutely, 100%. Thank you for that one, Thug. I appreciate it. And with that, y'all, I think that's going to be about it. Got 35 likes on a Monday, 26 people here right now. That is bizarre. I wish I could stay and read a little bit more, y'all. I'm starting to get to the hungry, tired part. But let's look for somebody to raid right quick. Yeah, absolutely, JB. We appreciate you right back, fam. And Rafa, my heart is with you, my brother. If you need anything, just let me know. Let's see if there's anybody on right now that we could bless our presence with. And I'm really hoping the redirects are working because the last couple of weeks they haven't really been going so well. Lost Hero, shiny pieces of cardboard. Wow, there isn't anybody on right now. Got Lost Hero, double slab Christmas ducks. Got Cosmic, and then shiny pieces of cardboard. Monday Night Magic, Papa Spokat. I think we can do Spokat. I might not hang out. 2293. Okay, it was just about an hour ago they started. So yeah, let's go see Spokat. Shiny pieces of cardboard and things. Let's go over there and say, Kaz is live. I didn't see Kaz. Tell me who, bro. Yes, I did change my @ but I got some time here for a bit. I'll shoot over another one of your friend channel. Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you, Chris. So I just got a new marriage proposal. I'm unworthy. Amazing ladies. Y'all are too awesome. Go have something to eat and get some rest, Uncle Kev. Peace, love, and Pokemon. Love from New Zealand. Much love, New Zealand fam. Love from Uncle Kev and all the uncles in the chats. Red or blue is not still on. That's normally our go-to on Monday. We can do Kaz. We can do Kaz. I just am not able to hang out. There we go. I'll share with Kat. I have the link. Excellent. If y'all want to drop the link, you can. I got the redirect set up, but just in case that doesn't redirect you, it will go in the chat, y'all. Always remember to go out and get everything that you set out to get, and don't let anything stop you. But it takes $0 to be a good person. So always do it through peace, love, and Pokemon, and thank you for believing in ghosts. We'll see you on Ghost Miss Night, y'all. Much love.